Oh, my hip is killing me today.
Going to the park is a painful experience for Kate Laufer.
Some days are better, some days are worse.
After undergoing her third surgery, the most recent on her back, Kate struggles to walk or do simple tasks.
I can't lift anything. I can't bend over. If my kids say something, hey mom, look at me, I have to physically turn my entire body to look at them.
Which is why Kate spends more time watching her kids than playing with them.
I want to get up here and I can't.
The mother of two likes spending time with her 8-year-old daughter Lily.
Oh, please don't fall, because I cannot catch you.
But her 13-year-old son Dominic wishes his mom could do more.
There's all the things I want to do you can't do.
Well, I'm doing the best that I can. It's better than nothing, is it not? At least we're doing it together.
Whatever.
It's a struggle not just with her own kids, but her fiancé, Matt Shattuck, also has 2 children. And together they are working to be a family.
But here's the thing.
It's really hard.
Hard isn't something you hear too often from Kate. In fact, she's used to facing difficulties in her life.
I did math. It was a really dark time for me.
One of the toughest challenges was in 2011. As a young mother, Kate says meth ruined her family, and she wanted more for her children, so she made the choice to get clean. She leaned on her dad and stepmom for help.
My stepmom helped me detox, and they helped me set up with 12-step programs like almost the next day and really helped me clean up.
And within a few months, Kate started being more independent.
I had gotten a job shortly after cleaning up. Instead of, for once, it was going to my kids rather than going to drugs.
Kate also set goals for herself and began running.
It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
In mid-2012, she decided to enter some races.
So I finally got up to my 3.1 miles, and then I started my first 5K, and I was so excited. It was like the coolest accomplishment I had ever had.
A big deal because Kate had been clean for over a year and had no desire to go back into the drug world. Instead, her goals were focused around being a good mom.
It was nice to be able to give my kids what they wanted, to see them blossom, and to have what they needed.
And she also was working towards running her first marathon, participating in several different races. Kate thought she was on her way to achieving her goal. That's until she was literally hit in the face and almost killed while driving. Something she may never fully recover from. And yet, all of this could have been prevented had RMS Cranes done their job in doing background checks and following their own safety policies. It was March 25th, 2013. Kate was helping her cousin Brandon move.
So it was the last load, and we were coming from Arvada to Littleton, and we were going southbound on I-25.
At around 10:45 in the morning, 29-year-old Kate was driving her blue Toyota Scion. Both her children, Dominic, 10, and Lily, 5, were buckled in the back seat. Her cousin was in the passenger seat.
And so we were just kind of cruising, listening to music. The kids were in the back. My trunk was full of Brandon stuff, and we were just kind of cruising.
Driving a few feet in front of her, Earl Corney III was driving a Kenworth truck for RMS Cranes Company. Both were in lane 1 traveling southbound on I-25 and approaching the Spear Boulevard Bridge. Kate remembers driving towards the bridge and talking with her cousin about changing the music playing in the car.
That was the last thing that I remember, is handing him my phone and saying, "This is not appropriate. You need to change the song."
Suddenly, concrete started flying through the windshield.
And it was like a loud boom. Glass flew all over the place.
Dominic says the car began to veer towards the concrete barrier that separates the highway, and he couldn't figure out what was wrong with his mom.
We started moving really crazy, and then I remember looking at her and there was just blood running down her forehead. Brandon took the wheel and we stopped, and then we kind of sat there for a second to regroup and figure out what happened.
According to Denver police, what happened is Earl Corney failed to observe posted bridge height advisory signs on I-25 before going under the Spear Boulevard Bridge. And his truck collided with the bridge, sending chunks of concrete and metal rebar onto several cars on the highway, including this large piece of concrete seen here on the floor of Kate's car. It smashed through her windshield, hitting her right in the face. Kate was knocked unconscious, and because her car was so damaged, emergency crews had to use jaws of life to get her out.
I didn't know what to think. I was so scared. I remember them putting her in a stretcher and putting her onto the ambulance.
Denver police cited Earl Corney for careless driving resulting in serious bodily injury. Police say Corney should have noticed the signs posted before approaching the Spear Boulevard Bridge. Mindy Crane with the Colorado Department of Transportation says signs are clearly posted up and down I-25.
We actually have signage about 2 miles back.
These signs tell drivers exactly how much headroom they have. Police measured Corney's truck at 14 feet 4 inches, clearly too big to get under both outside lanes that measure 13 feet. However, the center lane of the Spear Boulevard overpass is 16 feet 8 inches, more than high enough for Corney to have safely gone under. So why did Mr. Corney not move to the center lane? Especially because Corney admits
that is correct.
He knew the height of the Spear Boulevard Bridge before he approached it.
How long have you known about the height restriction of Spear Bridge?
Years.
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 Years of operating trucks on
That is correct.
And do you always operate in the left lane when you go on the Spear Bridge?
When the height's lower than 13 feet, yes. Most trucks are 12.6.
And just like he had done in years past, Corney admits he assumed his truck was only 12 feet high.
And you never measured the trailer yourself, you just assumed that it was 12 feet?
That is correct.
Do you ever measure the height of your trailer before you leave a job site and you're going to be traveling on the interstate?
No, sir.
Yet this is something Corney should have done, according to the Colorado Commercial Driver's License Driver Manual Handbook. It states federal and state law requires drivers to inspect their vehicles. It also states as a truck driver, you must look at your path and look at your line of travel before you begin. Get out and walk around the vehicle. Check your clearance to the sides and overhead, in and near the path your vehicle will take. Don Hess, who has worked for 40 years in commercial truck driving and as a professor, says checking weight and dimensions of a rig is among the most basic and simple tasks of a truck driver before departing.
One of the most important things that we teach truck drivers is managing space around your truck. And when we talk about managing space around your truck, we talk about the space in front, the space behind, the space to the sides, the space even underneath you, your ground clearance, and then the most obvious one is your height. And so you've got to know how tall you are because many overpasses and bridges are fairly tight clearances for trucks.
Hess says it's also basic knowledge to check the intended route for potential restrictions and clearances.
He should have checked his route ahead of time. He could have looked in a motor carrier road atlas to find low clearances along his route.
Furthermore, Hess says Corney should have known his load may have been a different size than what he had assumed because the type of load he was carrying.
This particular load that day of the accident was such a load. It was a Connex office building, which is one of those mobile offices you frequently see on job sites. And so that office structure, or trailer you might call it, was mounted on a flatbed trailer. Especially in the case of a load like that, a driver has a responsibility to know what the height and width and length of the object is.
Had Corney done these basic truck driving checks, Hess believes Corney could have prevented his truck from hitting the Spear Boulevard Bridge. However, this is not the first time Earl Corney was careless and had a disregard for safety while working as a truck driver at RMS Cranes. In fact, he had 4 violations before he hit the Spear Boulevard Bridge. Corney's first violation was on March 13, 2012, for not securing a load that shifted during transit, a safety violation. Then on October 16, 2012, Corney is written up again for not properly securing a load, another safety violation. Then just a few months later, on December 19, 2012, Corney was documented for having yet another safety violation because he had loose items on a trailer deck. Finally, on March 7, 2013, Corney was written up for getting into an accident. He hit a fence with a crane. And yet, after these 4 violations, Corney was still allowed by RMS Cranes to continue driving, even though this directly violates RMS Cranes' own safety program, in which the disciplinary procedures are outlined in a 3-stage process as follows. After a first violation, an employee receives a warning from his supervisor. After the second violation, a final warning is issued to the employee. Rocky Wilson, safety director at RMS Cranes, agrees.
That second stage, it says final warning next to that, right?
Yes.
What does that mean, final warning?
Well, if they've reached the second stage, and we like to call it, hey, this is your final warning type thing. Next thing that happens, you might not still be employed here.
And if an employee has 3 violations, the RMS Crane safety policy states that the employee could face termination.
And then third stage, disciplinary action. What is that stage all about?
That's the point where the supervisor or whoever's implementing the disciplinary action has decided that it's time to either suspend or terminate.
Okay. Would you agree with me that this kind of is like what we refer to as like a 3 strikes and you're out kind of a rule?
Yes, it's similar to that.
And yet, Earl Corney was still allowed to drive after having 4 violations. However, RMS Cranes violated industry customs and practices long before those violations happened. You see, they hired Corney, even though he had a history of violations prior to his employment at RMS Cranes. Corney had a total of 8 citations and 1 license cancellation. In fact, RMS Cranes didn't even bother to obtain his motor vehicle report for a year after they had hired him.
His record was so poor that, frankly, if you look at the requirements for a pizza delivery boy at Domino's Pizza, he wouldn't qualify.
Therefore, RMS Cranes had a significant role in Corney's collision with the bridge, by hiring him when they should have declined, and by not terminating him for his multiple safety violations while employed at RMS Cranes.
If Mr. Corney had been either denied employment or terminated prior to the day of this accident, Ms. Laufer wouldn't have been critically injured the way she was.
Kate Laufer was transported to Denver Health Medical Center.
My first memory was me opening my eyes and trying to figure out kind of what was going on.
Did you eat breakfast this morning?
Why am I here? Whoa, like what's the deal here? I was strapped down to a board.
Squeeze.
I had a neck brace on. There were nurses picking glass out of my face. They were stapling my skull.
I got to go right in to see Kate.
Kate's father, Fred Laufer, says his daughter was unrecognizable.
I was holding her hand. She had a big gash on her head. She had her eyes closed and there was glass all over her face, and she was crying when I got there. I was just thanking God that she was alive.
Doctors say Kate suffered a left temporal bone fracture, a large laceration on the left side of her scalp, several broken ribs, a left wrist injury, as well as inner ear injuries and major spinal injuries.
I was in a lot of pain. I was very confused because I couldn't move my neck. Not being able to turn my head, I couldn't tell what was going on.
Kate's body was covered in glass because the windshield and driver's side window had shattered on top of her.
I had a lot of glass in my face and in my hands and in my arms and in my chest.
While in the hospital, nurses worked to remove glass from her body. But even after the accident, Kate found hundreds of pieces of glass in her hair and skin.
The first shower that I took was my hair falling out and glass everywhere, bleeding everywhere. I cried the whole time. I pulled glass out of myself for months.
Kate says the pain was unbearable at times, most of it in the upper left side of her body. She also had to wear a neck brace and couldn't do much activity.
My ribs, my spine, everything hurt, so I didn't stand very often because I couldn't. I flat out couldn't do it.
The pain was so intense, she relied on others for help.
I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't do anything by myself. I had to have assistance with everything. I was non-functional completely. I couldn't do anything. My whole upper body and neck was swollen and bloody, and it was awful. It was rough. It was, I went from being, capable and able and, ready to do things to not being able to do things, to not being able to take care of myself.
It's hard, to watch. Like, it makes you really want to just go sit and cry in a corner.
Kate's life soon became consumed with doctor's appointments.
The recovery time was huge. To have all of the doctor's appointments and things that I had, for them to check to make sure to get the staples taken out of my head and to get, stitches removed and to get, x-rays and things to make sure that things were healing properly.
Because of the impact from the cement hitting the left side of her head, fracturing her temporal bone, Alan Lipkin, MD, noted Kate had tinnitus and loss of hearing in her left ear, something Kate says she didn't have before the accident.
I have what they call tinnitus. It's permanent ringing in my ears, always. I will always have it for the rest of my life.
Kate also now wears a hearing aid in her left ear, something she will have for the rest of her life.
But you can see it from the back side, so if I have my hair up, you can see it in the back, which is why I'm self-conscious of it.
Besides her ear, Kate was also having major issues with her left wrist. According to Michael Bagley, MD, Kate had surgery to repair a tendon that had ruptured in her finger. Bagley states that Kate had a notable subluxation and tear of her left ring finger extensor tendon over the MCP joint.
And they had to go in and pull it up from my wrist and down into my finger and then reattach it right here. So that I could have full functioning in my finger.
It took several months for Kate's wrist and hand to heal. It's an injury which Dr. Bagley believes was caused by the accident on March 25, 2013. A year later, Kate developed a cyst on that same wrist and had to have another surgery on January 7, 2015.
I was in a lot of pain.
Kate was also dealing with severe neck and back issues, and she went to Dr. Chad Prusmack, MD, a neurosurgeon.
What we found was that 2 levels in her neck, she had really bad disc tears. Those tears were in the same place at both levels, which are in what's called the posterior or the back area of the discs. Same area in the back.
Dr. Prusmack says having disc tears in the same area in both the neck and back shows that both injuries occurred at the same time in a high-velocity situation.
For someone to have had both a significant injury and tearing their discs up here and back here, that'd have to be a really high-impact crash for that to happen.
Dr. Prusmack had a chance to look at pictures of the accident scene for the first time.
Wow.
After seeing the photos, Prusmack believes Kate's neck and back injuries match up to what happened to her on March 25, 2013.
Having cement coming from the top, coming at you, having the car slow down at a quick speed, being belted in. Basically, Kate was just crunched from all sides, causing strain on her neck and her back.
In order to repair the tears in both her neck and back, Dr. Prusmack recommended surgery. On March 19, 2015, Kate underwent an anterior cervical discectomy surgery on 2 levels of the cervical spine. Then, just 4 months later, on July 30, 2015, Kate had a spinal disc fusion on the L4 to L5 to S1. Dr. Prusmack had to take bone marrow from her hip, as well as use screws and rods to complete the surgery.
This was a major surgery. This one, I went in, I spent 4 days in the hospital.
Since her back surgery, Kate uses a TENS machine around the clock to manage her pain.
It sends a frequency to the muscles in my spine. I can take a lot less pain medication with this.
It's been just over a month since her last surgery, and not much has changed for Kate.
Here I am, almost 2.5 years past the accident, and I'm still trying to heal. I'm still in pain.
Walking is a challenge, as well as going up and down stairs.
Because I'm afraid I'm gonna fall.
She also cannot do basic things around her home.
Climb up on the back of the couch, because then Mommy can reach it.
Like Kate can't really bend or twist, can't really share into the responsibilities.
Simple tasks like doing the laundry is something she has to get help to do.
Are you gonna be able to get the stuff from the bottom?
You gotta get some. Okay, babe, it's all you.
Kate also still can't work, and she depends on her dad and stepmom to help her and her children financially.
We got her an apartment, got her a car after she got in the accident because she had no car to take the kids to school.
It's put an extra stress on Fred and Kathy.
If the accident wouldn't happen, I probably would have retired.
But what's really difficult for Kate's family is having to watch her deal with so much pain and suffering for so long, and knowing there's a possibility of more surgeries in the future.
Seeing her in the state that she's in and the future state, it's killing me.
Kate still spends most of her time in bed. It's also where her family tends to hang out in order to spend time with her. For Kate, the reality is she may never lace up her running shoes again or chase her kids around. But what upsets her the most is the fact that all of this could have been prevented.
This could have all been avoided if they'd have just checked his record, but they didn't. And now here I sit, 2.5 years later, in pain, multiple surgeries and procedures later, and it's going to continue for the rest of my life, when all they had to do was check her record.